This is about refactoring the ROI of software, the return on investment. The way that I look at software today is very different than the way I looked at it 10, 15 years ago. Today, I look at software with this kind of ROI in mind. The software that I wrote in, let's say, 2005, right? 2005, some of it's still running in production, and some of it's probably still running on Java 5, right? Nobody's doing the care and feeding. It'd be nice if somebody's doing the care and feeding. It'd be nice if today that same software I wrote in 2005 was running on Java 24. That would be amazing, right? That would be that change. It would be more valuable. It would take less servers to run. It would be running on a smaller, it'd be better. The return on investment would be better if it could just stay up to date. That's the key. So that's what I look at here is it's not about anything else. It's just like the way that we look at the software, the way that we look at the investments that we're making in software are different today than what they were even yesterday, 5 years ago. So I'm DaShaun. I'm a Spring developer advocate. I love my job. I'm jazzed to be here. Like, this is my thing. I've been looking forward to this conference for a long time. I want to say it was at least 20, maybe 24. I refactored this abstract because there's so much that I want to talk about. There's so much that I want to share around OpenRewrite that I spent a lot of time, like maybe too much time on the abstract just to get it right. I've been looking forward to this conference for a long time, and I love what I do. Before this role, I was a partner solution architect at Redis for 411 days. Before that, I worked at Pivotal. I worked with Jonathan Snyder at Pivotal. We have a lot of great stories. I'd love to spend time and tell you about all the great stories from my time at Pivotal, but I'm back, right? Before that, I was VP of engineering. This is where I kind of realized, like, hey, the decisions that we make and the software that we take to production, they actually have a cost. They actually, when you're trying to get investment, right? Those little decisions, they matter. And I was aware of what our cloud spend was every day. I knew the dollars and cents that we were spending every day. Before that, I was a tech lead engineer at Garmin Connect. So today, in that last 1,240 something days, most of my time as a developer advocate, I spend it with customers. And yeah, last week, there might have been 11 customers last week. Next week, there might be 15. But like every week, there's a handful of customers that I'm spending an hour or two with every week. So sometimes it's for 6 weeks. Sometimes it's for a year or more, where I've just kind of been working with the customer, just weekly small touches, is what I would say. It's just like, hey, and I call it office hours. Like, what are you working on today? What can I help you out with? So it's an open door. It's not demos all the time. It's just a regular cadence with customers. And a lot of times, if I'm involved, it's about migrations. It's about upgrades. It's about remediating CVEs. It's about getting performance improvements, figuring out issues. And a lot of times, fixing performance issues can be done just by upgrading. So that's the background. I'm just going to bring a bunch of stories about, and I'll try to like frame it so you can capture it, what it's like working with software, what it's like working with global 2,000 customers across different verticals across the globe. Yeah. So migrations, they're a thing. Sometimes you have to do them. Sometimes you can avoid them. But they're a thing. Somebody's doing them somewhere. And sometimes they're harder than they should be. But yeah, sometimes we're like, we'll get to it later. Too risky, not now. And these too risky, those are never developers that say those things. It's always, no. I don't want you to spend any time on that right now. We got to get this feature out. Right? Developers are rarely saying those things. Sometimes they'll say, we'll do it in the next sprint. But they're oftentimes, the developers that I'm interfaced with, they're saying, I want to do this. I want to be on the latest and greatest. So let's wait. Does that sound familiar? Like putting off things? Yeah. Another thing is they'll say, well, let's wait until there's a breaking change. That's like my least favorite thing to hear. We'll wait until there's a breaking change.
They're very easy to push too. It seems always so easy to just be like, we'll do it. Like, there'll be time.
Yeah, we'll have time. Yeah. So software it changes over time. And there's this idea that's still pretty popular. Hey, we'll upgrade that repository the next time that we touch it. We're always taking software to production. We're adding new features. So the software that you're running in production today, it looks different than when it first went. And sometimes upgrades happened along the way, sometimes they didn't. But one of the common things that I hear is, we'll upgrade that repository the next time we touch it. We'll get the upgrades. And that was kind of just a practice. Like, hey, if you're going to touch the repository, do all the care and feeding as well, right? That wasn't included in your story points. That wasn't included in your planning. You're going to make this simple fix. Oh yeah, that's one. That'll be easy. Change the from TEH to THE, like fix that thing. Oh, but then when you get into the repository, oh, it's on Java 6. Wait, what do you do now? You touched the repository. You had to fix the typo, but now you have all of this other stuff that wasn't planned for your 1 point story point, or however you do it, right? Does that sound familiar, or just me? Right, that's.
Want to disable sonar for now.
Let's disable sonar for now. I want to write that one down. Let's disable. We're recording this. Disable sonar for now. That's a good one, and I have heard that. It doesn't always play out that way, right? When we get into that repository, I know there's upgrades here, but I just want to just do this typo and move on. But it's a pattern that we've all fallen into. Sometimes migrations feel like a side quest. Sometimes that upgrade feels, I'm in this repository. It's on Spring Boot 3.2. It would only take me a few minutes to upgrade this to Spring Boot 3.4. Like it would only take a few minutes. And it kind of feels good for me, right? It kind of feels good. Like, oh, I'm in here. Yeah, I fixed that bug and I upgraded that repository, right? That's a cool feeling. But you kind of pick and choose when you're going to do that. And the later, we'll get to it later. Oftentimes it becomes never. And we just end up shipping features on top of aging software. We didn't have time to do the upgrade, but we definitely needed to get that feature out. So we did that. We prioritized that. Migrations, why are they hard? It's not hard. It's not a technical reason, right? It's mostly about time, right? It's not a technical, and a lot of times there's politics involved. I get that. But it's not about capability. Migrations aren't hard because we don't understand them. They're hard because they're manual. That's it, right? And the bigger your company is, the more you feel that pain, the more you realize, you think about it for a second. How many places are we still running Java 6? How many places are we still running Java 8? And you think about it, some of you, the longer you're in the company, the more skeletons you find. And you realize like, sometimes that risk makes it so you can't sleep at night. You're like worried, like, how long before that gets exploited? But there's no pipeline. That's the main thing. There's no safety net. There's no way of doing these and validating things, right? And we need that. Migrations shouldn't be complex or hard. That went the wrong way. What if we flip the way that we think about this? And that's kind of, I'm here. And I made the assumption that I'd come in and everybody had heard about OpenRewrite and everybody's used it, everybody's already on the journey, but I found out that we're not, right? I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Like, how do you go from 0 to, what does that look like? From 0 to, hey, we're doing it successfully. We're doing all the things, all the promise that we've seen, and we're doing that. We're going to talk about that journey. But in order to do that, we kind of have to think about this. It's not a one-time thing. You don't do OpenRewrite once and then back away. And unfortunately, that's what I see a lot of, right? It was a project. We have to upgrade to this version. You found OpenRewrite, you did the upgrade to the version, and then you walked away. And I mean you generally, right? I've seen it happen a lot of times where they're like, hey, you saw the value in how easy this tool makes the upgrade, and then you just left it there. And I don't want that. I don't want that for anybody. We're in this really great opportunity. I look at this conference as kind of like I'm hoping it's like an inflection point in the way that we do software across the globe, right? We have this opportunity to move software in a different direction so that in 10 years from now, we're not saying, oh yeah, I'm still running Java 20 in production. No, we're at this point with software where we realize we've been doing it on our phones. Our phones are getting updated all the time. We don't blink. Our phones are taking updates. Your cars are taking updates. This is the way that the world is moving. And for our enterprises, right? And a lot of the companies that you work at, you're holding my money, right? Or you're protecting my house, or you're building my cars, right? I want you to be running on the latest software. If I know that you're running Java 8 in production or worse, that makes me worried about my money. That makes me worried about the car that I'm driving. And I'm hoping that this conference is kind of that inflection point where we can look back and say, I was at the first code remix. That would be cool. So let's talk about it. Here's the thing. I see this tool being used, and all the time I hear shift left, and let's put this into the hands of the developers. OpenRewrite plugin, give it to the developers. They'll do it. They got enough on their plate. They've got enough that they're doing other things. They got to get features to production. This unplanned work is not going to help them in any way, shape, or form. It's not going to help the company. You can't do it manually. Developers have enough. So once you've gotten to the platform where the rest of your automation happens, stop shifting left. That's where this needs to live. That's where OpenRewrite needs to live. That's where this automation needs to live. What I see are not migration problems. I see process problems, right? And having a platform where you can deliver this automation helps. So this is my big leap in this talk. How many people are familiar with CI/CD? Continuous integration, continuous delivery, fantastic, right? In this process, we're doing CI/CD. Nobody's validating their release manually, right? No, you're still running your unit tests, your integration tests. You're still, doing Maven clean, Maven verify locally, but you're not trusting that that's what's going to go through to production. That your Maven verify on your laptop is what's going to production. Nobody's doing that level of testing manually. You've got a pipeline that does it. And it's that pipeline, it's that process of testing and validating and giving you that confidence. That's the value in CI/CD. That's why we can deliver multiple releases in a day sometimes. So we zoom out. In your ID, you're doing that. But yeah, pipelines. CI/CD fundamentally changed how we deliver software. It changed it, right? We can deliver it faster. I look across the room. I'm not sure anybody is old enough to remember shared servers where like, oh, I'm going to FTP into production and I'm going to put this file there. That's what we used to do. And if it breaks, that's why we didn't do things on Friday, right? Like there was an age before CVS, before a Git repository, right, where you could roll back things. There was an age where in order to roll back, somebody had to go into the data center. Times have changed. Sometimes you don't realize how good you've got it. But while we've solved delivery, like we've solved this for getting software to production, we haven't solved it for the evolution. We solved it for getting features to production, but we didn't take into account all of the external forces that are acting on our software. All the bad actors, all the CVs, all the compliance and regulations that change every day. Right? We didn't take that into account. How do we get those to production quickly, safely? We've actually made it, with CI/CD, we've actually made it easier to deliver outdated software faster too. So what I want to introduce, this is my big leap. I want to introduce CI/CD, continuous integration along with continuous migration. This idea that it's a different path, right? Your features, your product stuff comes down one line, but all of those external forces, they're coming down a different line. And in order to adapt to that, you have to have a different process. Does that make sense? Continuous integration with continuous migration. So CI/CD gave us speed. CI/CD gives us resilience and more. With OpenRewrite, we can now treat migrations just like we treat our tests. Automated, repeatable, and safe. It's not a big bang refactor every 3 years or longer. It's small, targeted changes every day that you can have confidence in because they're recipes. If I rerun that recipe, I get the same results. This is the key, just like my unit tests. This way, modernization becomes a feature, not a fire drill. There. So this is what I want you to envision. There's two pipelines here. The first one, CI/CD. Yeah, your traditional. It's build, test, deploy. It's streamlined, it's safe, it's automated, you can go fast. But we're missing a layer. So that bottom layer is that CI/CD. This is how I see it. However way you shape it, this is what I want you to picture. Imagine a system that detects drift, period. What is that drift? Is it a new CV? Is it a new patch? Whatever that is. And I'm going to pause here. This is where I'm going to inject a customer story because it was recent. Customer realized like, hey, there's a new VM type in Azure, a new VM image. They were using, they're like, hey, this is on the menu in this region. let's take it for a spin. They detected the drift. They pushed out their Terraform changes to do a canary deployment. Let's validate side by side. Will this new VM type do anything for us? They validated it. They validated it in that separate pipeline. And they decided, yeah, this could do something for us. They took it to production. And what did that result in? $50,000 a month savings by switching a VM type. New VM shows up on the menu in their Azure region. They do a little validation of it, and they save $50,000 a month. OpenRewrite wasn't involved in that, but the same process of detecting the drift, whether it's a Java version, a Spring Boot version, or other. Detecting the drift, rewriting it, creating that pull request, and then validating that pull request. That's the key. It's that validation. That's what pulls it into the main line and allows you to take it to production. So keep that in mind. Not once a year, every single day. Detect the drift. What's new on the menu? Is there a new CVE? Or every 3 hours. I say every 3 hours because the CVE databases, those are getting updated every 3 hours. Right. So I want to run this. Hey, is there any drift? Is there anything else that I can patch or fix? I do that every 3 hours because that's CVEs are getting updated. This is the future of software maintenance. We already do this with security scans. We're doing it with tests. We're doing it with dependency updates, but now we can deliver real business value. And it's not just a report about something that needs to be fixed, right? This is with OpenRewrite, we're delivering the upgrade as code. And that's the notification. So much better than getting the, hey, we detected a bug in this thing that you're running in 1,000 instances across the globe, go fix it. That's a very different story than, here's a PR. Please merge it. Validate it. Take it to production. Totally different conversations. They should run quietly in the background. Creating pull requests or patches, ready to be merged when you're ready. I understand if I created a pull request and I put it on your repository, I understand you might not have time to get to that today. But when you are ready, when you do have time, the pull request is there. If you've got really cool pipelines, it's already been validated. We've already ran the unit test, the integration test, the smoke test against that branch, against that pull request. So that when it comes time, when you have time to hit that merge button, it's ready. You can have some confidence. It's been validated. And most importantly, these follow policy, right? This automation follows policy, not tribal knowledge. It's not hidden, it's shared. CVEs are the dinner bell for bad actors. When a new CVE drops today, there's going to be one. When a new CVE drops, the bad actors have to act. It is their dinner bell. That is their opportunity to go and find who can I exploit today. And if they don't act fast, they might not eat. That's their job. What our job, what your job now is to make it so they don't eat. Our job is to make it so that, hey, the difference, when that CVE gets published, we want to reduce the amount of time that we're exposed. We want to get that fix in. So that gap, I want you to remember this part, the time between when it's published and when it's remediated, that's the metric that matters. That's the metric that matters. But this is just on the security side. There's new CVEs that drop daily. And if your company's large, the buffet is bigger, the target's bigger, like, yeah, you got a bigger target on your back. We can't afford to respond to vulnerabilities on a case-by-case basis anymore. It's just, it's the deck is stacked against us. There are, even for the companies here that have 45,000 developers, we're still fighting against tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of bad actors, strip kitties. They're just waiting for you to make a mistake. You can't handle it on a one-by-one basis. Security has to be proactive, it has to be continuous, it has to be automated. But I'm just talking about security here, right? Your CISO might be sleeping better at night. I call that report the CISO heartburn report, right? The one that says, hey, CVEs fixed, CVEs fixed. There's always new CVEs. They might be sleeping great. Here's the thing, patching CVEs is hard to measure in real dollar value. Because you patched 15 CVEs last week, how does that affect your bottom line? right? It might look great on a report, but how does it affect your bottom line? Your CISO might be sleeping great, but the best securities know this. If you burn down 10,000 CVEs last year, it does. It looks great on paper. But mature teams know what's the real metric behind that number. How long were those CVEs open? How long were you exploited? Because if 1,000 of those, or even 100 of those, had been open since 2005, where's the real risk? Like, are you really feeling proud about those 10,000 CVEs that you patched? So the real metric for mature security teams is that time between CV publish and CV remediate. The only way to do that is with automation at scale. Period. But it's still hard to measure. Here's the thing. I learned this phrase while I was in the Netherlands. If you can think beyond just security for just a moment, if you can grade continuously, I'm a developer advocate. Spring is a Java framework, and we get a new Java version every 6 months. We get a new Spring Boot version every 6 months. Those benefits, the upgrades that are happening, just by doing the upgrade, not talking about security, just by doing the upgrade, sometimes we can get some real measurable value, and I want you to do that. I want you to be able to measure that value. I heard in the keynote, he talked about recognition. Today, I'm refactoring the way that you look at the ROI. And if you're not doing these upgrades, you are stealing from your own wallet. And here's why. The Java versions every 6 months, the Spring Boot versions, these upgrades come with performance improvements. They come with memory footprint improvements, startup time improvements. And new versions bring better garbage collection. So better throughput. Add in virtual threads, ahead of time processing, class data sharing. Like, there's a whole gamut of stuff that you have available if you're on the latest and greatest versions. But it's not just theoretical either, right? When I sit in front of a CTO, a CFO, a COO, and I show them, here's how much money you saved, right? That's a real conversation that we can have, right? I say, hey, 10,000 CVEs I fixed last year. They're like, oh, that's great, right? I'm gonna sleep a little bit better. But if I can say at the exact same time that I patched those 10,000 CVEs, I also saved us $50,000 a month on our cloud spend for this one app, $150,000 a quarter for this other app because of the reduced performance or the reduced memory footprint and the increased throughput. Our better performance. Do you realize in the stock market, Wall Street, the data centers in Wall Street, there was a time where the rack that was next to the switch on the wall was the rack that you wanted because the amount of wire between your rack and the switch was shorter than the other one. So now what do? For those milliseconds for the data centers that are in Wall Street, close to Wall Street, because they want those milliseconds matter. Now they run wire. Those milliseconds matter. It is a competitive advantage if you've got a shorter wire. So if you're on that end of the rack or that end of the aisle or this end of the aisle, they wanted to have the same length of wire. So that's what they do. So that there's no advantage to being close to the switch or not. Mind blowing, right? But when you're doing millions of transactions a second, those milliseconds matter. And what I'm telling you now, for some of your orgs, those milliseconds matter. If you can squeeze out even a 1% performance improvement, you have an opportunity every 6 months. You have an opportunity every 6 months to squeeze out 1%, single-digit percent across those millions of transactions, those hundreds of apps. This is where we're at, right? In the keynote, he mentioned recognition. How cool would it be if you're the person, you're the team, your apps are doing this consistently, regularly? Hey, yeah, we only saw a 0.5% performance improvement last quarter, but we also saw it the quarter before, and the quarter before, and the quarter before. If you're not doing these upgrades continuously, you're stealing from your own wallet. You're leaving money on the table. That money is there for you. And that money matters at every level of the business. When you if you lower your cloud bills, require fewer servers, deliver better performance to your customers and your partners, even a single-digit percentage improvement multiplied across hundreds of services or millions of requests is no longer optional. It's a competitive advantage. It's like you're in the rack closest to the switch. Take advantage of it. So let's go to a quick demo. This demo, I show at one point, I was showing it at least 20 times a week. It's in my GitHub repo. You can do it yourself. I've got jokes. I'm starting with Java 8. I don't do that in my house. Neither should you. I'm cloning a Spring Boot 2.6 application, which is old. It's end of life, but I'm using Java 8 and Spring Boot 2.6 here. And I'm just going to start it up. It's a simple application, right? There's nothing. It's a Spring Boot application, so it's got some cool things in it. We're going to test it. It's up. It's up. I validate that it's up. And this is autopilot, right? It's running 490 megabytes. At this point in time, and it's automated, so we're going to get the same kind of cycle time, but 490 megabytes. Java 8, Spring Boot 2.6. What I'm doing now is I'm running OpenRewrite recipes. I've been doing this since Spring Boot 3.0, running that same kind of collection of recipes that are going to upgrade me from Spring Boot 2.6 up to the latest and greatest. I've easily delivered this demo thousands of times to all levels of the org. Once the recipe is done, I'm going to upgrade, in this case, to Java 24. I'm going to start it up again. I didn't open my IDE. If I run this demo again, I'm going to get the exact same diff at the end because it's repeatable. I'm confident, safe. It's up. It's healthy. I validated. It's same app. It's still enterprise grade, production ready. It's ready. But look at this time, it's only 202.6 megabytes. That's a big savings. All we did was upgrade our software from Java 8 to Java 24, from Spring Boot 2.6 to Spring Boot 3. And in this simple app, we saw 200 megabytes of savings. Again, but multiply that times thousands of apps across the globe. That adds up. But then this is the extra step. Because I'm on Spring Boot 3 and Java 20, I can do more stuff. I can do the ahead of time compilation. I can do class data sharing. Here I'm doing native image. But you can't take advantage of these features unless you've done the upgrade. And another thing I want you to look at is, what if your competitors are doing the upgrade? What if, right, your number one competitor, what if they're taking advantage of all this and you're not? That's a big deal. That's why we're here. You've got to take the first step. You've got to do the upgrade. It's still going to work. It's still production ready. But now it's healthy. Now it's 85 megabytes because we built a native image out of it. But that's neither here nor there. The big result is just by doing the upgrade, we get massive savings. So I started out with Spring Boot 2.6 Java 8. It started up 0.805 seconds, 490 megabytes. It actually started slower. But guess what? I don't care. It started 1% slower on the second one because I saved 59%. Now, I don't know what it's like in your organization. I don't know what it's like where you work at, but where I work at, if we save 10%, I get a nicely written email. If I'm saving 10% on any app that I take in production, nicely written email. My manager might get a CC on that email. But if I save 40%, 50% or more, my entire team gets cookies. I don't know what it's like in your org, but we care when you find savings like that. And if you take it, you've got to do the second step. You've got to do the upgrade before you can take advantage of the native image. But this is how I want you to measure things going forward. If you want to get the recognition that we heard about in the keynote, this is what I want you to do. Do the upgrade. Measure it. And maybe it's not startup time. Maybe it's not footprint. Maybe it's performance that matters. Maybe it's the latency between your customers or your partners and what you're doing in production. Maybe that's what matters. But find the metric. It will exist. This is what I do, is I help teams find those metrics so they can be like, hey, look what I did. And I know it's hard to toot your own horn, but I'm here to help. That's what I want to do. So let's go back. And hey, that was a cool demo. Reality is, it's not typical. 59% right out of the gate, that's not typical. But I'm not pretending every org will see results like that. But the deal is, even small single-digit percentage improvements matter. Done regularly, done continuously, add up to massive wins. And I've been doing this long enough where I've seen those little wins turn into massive wins. I've seen the one line of business that's even in the same building on the next floor right? They came from a hand, oh, we used to copy each other's code. We had the same common utils. I've seen it where one line of business is on the upgrade path and they're seeing the result. They're on Java 24, Java 21, and Spring Boot 3.4. And the other line of business on the next floor is not. And the massive difference in guess which floor is getting the new talent? Guess which floor people want to work on? Guess which team people want to work on? This is where the investment pays off. So this is the part that I added after seeing the keynote, because there is a journey. There's a common journey. And this is typical of what it looks like from where I sit. Hey, have you heard about OpenRewrite? Give them a little demo like I just showed. Like, wait, and I even have them do it on their code. Like, it just fixed my code correctly? Well, that's cool. That's step one. I'll check in. Maybe the next week, right? I do these regular weekly meetings. How's it going? Do you need any help? I don't need help. I got this. I can write YAML. I can write these recipes. These are great. I see all these recipes in the marketplace. It's great. I'm good. How hard can it be? Check in again later. How's it going? You need help? No, I'm good. They're good. I'm going to take this to production. We're going to be totally done, just fine. And then it's 6 weeks of silence. Don't hear anything. This is typical. It used to be 6 weeks and then kind of moved to 2 weeks and that window changed. But for a while, it was a regular 6 weeks because they were off finding all the recipes and they were going to do this across as many repositories as they could. And then they'll call back. Hey, do you have a recipe that migrates from ancient Spring Boot to the latest with no breaking changes? We did the upgrades and it broke. Right? All the upgrades passed, but yeah, and our unit test even passed. But in production, it broke. Can you help? That's the call that I get back 6 weeks later. And then they're like, well, while you're at it, since you do this all the time, can we do this with our Kubernetes deployments? Because we'd like to upgrading Kubernetes is actually hard too. Can you help us do that? Oh, and we have some COBOL. Is there any recipes for COBOL? And we're laughing, but these are questions. These are conversations that I've had. But then it's like, hey, yeah, here's what happened. I promised the team support for Spring Data. I told them that writing recipes is easy, and I actually promised that we'd get these. So can you help me find recipes for these things yesterday? Just asking, right? Surely somebody else has been in this spot, because once you've like tasted it, once you've seen the value, then there's a need. Their eyes say help, but the Slack message says quick question. Why isn't everybody in my org? Why isn't everybody doing this already? Why am I the only one that has to do this? PowerPoint decks appear, acronyms are weaponized, and then the center of excellence is born. If I convince security and architecture to approve this, I'll finally make a name for myself in this company. I found it. I found OpenRewrite, and I'm going to share it with everybody. They've renamed their internal Slack channel Rewrite Revolution. That's a real thing. If it's your company, I'm sorry. Tried to automate all our upgrades and nothing works. They were trying to do it manually. This is what I saw, right? Before there was the opportunity, it was just OpenRewrite, it worked. I showed it to developers, and that's the angle that I'm coming from. It's not a leadership. It's like, hey, we got to do this. It was, I'm just working with developers. I got a small audience. Here's a cool tool. Here, it's going to fix something, right? There's a lot of things that get fixed when you're on the latest and greatest. And it's also easier to find help when you're on the latest and greatest. Do you know how hard it is to find help for Spring Boot 1.5 today? Very, very hard. But if you're on Spring Boot 3.4.5, everybody wants to listen. Oh, you found a problem in the latest and greatest software that we just released? Sure, tell me. Nobody wants to work on the outdated software. But that's just, maybe that's finding. I'll do the scientific research paper on that later. But this is the thing. This is also a cheat code. If you're using open source software, if you're building your enterprise on top of open source software, one way to make your company a little bit more visible, a little bit more respected to that open source software is by being on the latest and greatest. They will treat you with more respect. They will prioritize your questions a little bit better if you're on the latest and greatest, no matter what the name of your company is. You can throw that back. You can throw it away. It's a little advice. So I tried upgrading. Jenkins is crying, the cat's judging, the POM XML is unrecognized. And there's all these custom plugins. When people are trying to do this on their own. When they're trying to build up their own automation, there's really unique approaches. And I've seen a lot of them. Where they said, hey, yeah, let's do it this way. And it oftentimes works for one line of business and then it doesn't work for the next one. Can someone just tell me where's all the new recipes? There's got to be more. Or if mine are deprecated, or if any of my life choices are wrong, I feel like maybe I've gone down the wrong path. There have been a lot of other frameworks that have tried to do what OpenRewrite is doing. A lot of frameworks have come and gone. Period. They subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discords. They need all the new, they need it. They need the new recipes. Okay, maybe I can't do this alone and run the platform and deliver regular releases and meet quarterly goals. Maybe I can't do it alone. And they realize that OpenRewrite, it's a team sport. They ask for a coach. They call them back. For me, these are just stories working with customers all over the world. Wait, if I get this working, I could save hundreds of hours, maybe thousands. We could be happy again. Remember the joy when you first started doing development, when you were on the latest and greatest, how great it felt? Or even, how many of you know Josh Long? Josh Long is my teammate. He's probably presenting right now. Like it's fun watching him develop with all the cool new sticks. That's great. But he's always using the latest and greatest. He's always like, you can't use Spring AI if you're on Spring Boot 2.6. You're kind of stuck. You got to get to the first, so we call it sweet and sour. He shows you all sweet. This is what's available in the latest and greatest. And then there's that sour spot where you're like, oh, wait, I'm on old software. This is where OpenRewrite comes in. I love it. It's fun. It's fun getting teams up to latest and greatest so they can do the things that Josh is doing when he's on stage. That's fun. We could be happy again. So about this continuous remediation thing, can we set up a recurring call? Finally, it's full circle. The enlightenment has been achieved. The customers, they bring their friends and they realize like, hey, can't do it alone. This is it. And that whole typical journey, it aligns with the 12 stages of grief. All of those steps, so the way that it works, I put teams, orgs, I put them into buckets, good, better, and best. Like a lot of things, good, better, and best. So I'm gonna just kind of tell you like, hey, here's what I see. In the good bucket, there's usually at least one big A application, meaning it's got a name. It might be a microservice. It might be something that's 20 years old. But yeah, it's made it to N-0. I choose to live the N-0 life because of how much I love OpenRewrite. I've kind of taken this mindset of being on the latest and greatest. Maybe too far, maybe not, we'll see. But brew, update, brew, upgrade, I'm doing that at least 3 times a day. Sudo apt get update, sudo apt get upgrade. I'm doing it on I have 104 Raspberry Pis in my house, and they all are getting updated at least twice a day. I want to be on the latest and greatest, and I've taken it to that level. There's no reason to be on N-1 or more. And I started doing this exercise with OpenRewrite, stuff that you can get off the shelf. Like, there's no commitment. It's open source. Go do it. We would love your contributions. Pull requests are welcome, but there's tons of value that's there, and we got to get you excited to do it. And in one case in particular, I took it in and we did the OpenRewrite and we upgraded them and it fixed a lot of things. And they shared it back with their company, like, hey, here's what we did in 5 hours of meeting with the Spring team. Here's what we were able to do. We were up, I think it was a Spring Boot 2.4, and they got it up to Spring Boot 3.0 at that time. And it was great. Fixed their big issue, plus they're seeing performance improvements, and they took it to another line of business, and we got to see it. And he was like, hey, that's really cool. You're on the latest and greatest. You're on the latest version of Java and the latest version of Spring. And his amazement was just look back. He's like, can we do this everywhere? So remember that. He's like, he saw the value that one team was able to get in a few hours with a little bit of hand holding. He saw the value, like, hey, he immediately went to, how do we do this across the company? In this good bucket, they've got at least one that's on the latest and greatest. They found value. They measured it, right? They measured the value. They measured something, and that you have to be able to measure it in order to get in the good bucket. If you're not measuring anything, if you're not doing the recognition of, right, I also agree, don't do it in hours saved. I don't even want you to do it in CVEs closed, right? That's the security team. They're going to take all the credit for that, whether they did the work or not. I want you to look at another metric, grab another metric. But in order to get into the good bucket, you have to be measuring some other thing. Latency, throughput, memory footprint, startup time, whatever it is. They're leveraging OpenRewrite recipes, but they're still doing it manually in the good bucket. So they're doing it, running the Maven plugin and doing it manually. They're picking their recipes. They're trying to do the automation, but they're not there yet. And the effort, it hasn't scaled. A lot of times it's like there's buckets of people that are like, oh yeah, I get it. That's something cool. And it's still in that good bucket. It's still limited to a handful of teams. The last line here is, this is something that I find really interesting. When you're trying to upgrade old software, some organizations, they have their Artifactory, their Nexus, they actually pull the releases out. If there's a CVE in that release, they throw it away. You don't get access to that. But here's the problem, and here's why I leave companies that are doing this in the good bucket. Because if I'm on Spring Boot 2, and I'm trying to get to Spring Boot 3.4, I kind of need to go to 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. I need to have, even though, yeah, there's still CVEs, there's less CVEs. And this might be a controversial, where I'm saying going from 2.0 to 2.1 in production is better than saying you can't go to production until that code base is on 3.4. Until you fixed all the CVEs, you can't go to production. I'm saying that there's value in having a reduction in risk in production, a reduction in the number of CVEs. And if you don't leave that space, if you don't leave the ability to go from 2.0 to 2.1, 2.1 to 2.2, if you don't leave that as a possibility, that 2.0 app is rarely going to make it to 3.4, especially if we're doing it manually. So that's why I leave any company that's doing that in this good bucket. And I do get a lot of pushback, and I'm welcome to hear pushback. But what I'm saying is I think it's better to be able to have less CVs in production. There's got to be a path. Once you get to the latest and greatest, once your org is at 3.3, working to 3.4, then go backwards. But until you've gotten everybody up, you can't leave people behind. No code left behind. In the better bucket, they have migration automation in places, not everywhere, right? They've got little hooks. I've seen it as parts of pipelines. I've also seen it as CLIs that they're putting in the hands of developers that are custom for their process, for their org. They know which libraries are in use, and they also know which libraries are in use that are no longer supported, right? Where they're like, hey, yeah, we're using that library here, here, and here, and there's no support. It's end of life. They also know where those libraries are being used. They've migrated at least one dead library. And I've been saying Hystrix, but I don't know if Hystrix is still under development, but they've migrated from a Hystrix to a Resilience4j. Some library that's no longer being supported to a new library that is being supported. They've got in the good bucket or in the better bucket, they've got at least one of those where they've migrated from an old unsupported library to a newer library in its place. And they've got more than one N-0 application. They got more than one app running in production that has some automation attached to it that is on the latest and greatest. Can't just be one. And they've got, this is the big thing, they've got at least one application in production that is on N-0 that is no longer under active development. It's a feature complete app. It's the thing that we wrote in 2005 that doesn't have a team. It's just been making us money, right? And it's done. But it wasn't getting the care and feeding. They got one of those apps that has nobody doing active development that is now on N-0. It's on Java 21. It's on Spring Boot 3.4 or Spring Framework 6. That's how you get into the better bucket. In the best bucket, there's this momentum where teams, repositories are being added monthly, like regularly. The migration automation has its own gravity pulling in. In the keynote, he talked about like internal marketing. In the best bucket, a lot of times you don't have to do any internal marketing. There is no need because you're sitting at lunch. You're like, what do you mean you're on 3.4.5 and you're on Java 24? How did you get there so fast? It's just word of mouth. It's a buzz. And those reports that are showing, hey, we saved 10% again this quarter, 10%. Our friends over at Netflix have been really vocal about this. They share many, many times. Paul Baker, you can look for Paul Baker, Netflix upgrades. When they went from Java 8 to Java 11, they said 10% performance improvement. From 11 to 17, again, 10% performance improvement. And again, from Java 17 to Java 21, Netflix, Paul Baker said it multiple times, 10% performance improvement. How awesome is that? Right? At that kind of scale, that's real numbers. That's important. So have no need for internal marketing. Here's the other thing that's slightly different than what I heard. They have 2 or 3 migration engineers that know how to create and maintain OpenRewrite recipes for their internal projects. 2 or 3. I'll come back to that in a little bit. They can identify which applications to focus on for the most value. Like they're aware, like, hey, yeah, we have that common util library that's built against Java 6, but it's only being used by 15 applications. Whereas we have this Java 8, right, that's got a CV in it and it's being ran at 5,000 applications. They know the difference. They've got metrics, whether it's repository metrics or SBOM metrics. They've got the metrics on the repositories that are running in production where they know how to analyze and find where they should focus their efforts. Where should we write the next recipe? Which one should we target next? They can address critical issues quickly and at scale. They still haven't migrated everything off the struts. Even in the best bucket, there's still struts in the building, but they know where struts is being used and they've got a plan to address it. It's the best bucket. So let's just talk about these engineers. What I heard in the keynote, he's kind of building a team. But what I heard was kind of his team is more around like the platform, right? So I looked at it more as like a platform supporting team than just a team of migration engineers. So there's a little bit different what I heard in the keynote versus what I see. What I see in the best bucket is there's 2 or 3. And the migration engineer, it's not a title that they wear. They're not migration engineers. That's not the job that they applied for. It's just a responsibility that they share. He mentioned he's got kind of these community leads that are just volunteering. That's the pattern that I see. And in that best bucket, the pattern that I see is there's 2 or 3 engineers, even for companies that have 60,000 repositories, companies that have 45,000 engineers, there's 2 or 3. Some of those companies that are doing consulting, or each kind of pod or each vertical, they've got migration engineers, but it's kind of a different pattern. For the enterprises that are building their own software and building their company on top of their own software, there's 2 or 3 engineers. There's one in India, there's one in Amsterdam, there's one in America. And it's not a full-time job. It's, hey, I need to write this recipe for this thing. They've got the skill set. Somebody in the company's like, oh yeah, I know who to send you to. And they do it along with the rest of their work. And it's valuable to them. They deliver outcomes that affect the whole org. They're curious. They learned this new tooling and they are helping others succeed. And they love this work. That's the big thing. Those migration engineers, they love the work. The ones that are not just applying the recipes, but the ones that are building recipes for their internal libraries and other, they really love their work. Because when you help reduce risk and improve performance at scale, that's deeply satisfying. So this is it. Like, this is the new way forward. This continuous migration, it's a strategy, period. It's the way that we should be developing software. The old way, right? We've been there, new CVE drops, and it's all hands on deck. Like, stop the world, this new exploit. Spectre, what were the ones? Spectre, Log4Shell is another one. We had some, like, everybody stop what you're doing. We're not taking any new features. We got to fix this thing that's on the news. And everybody just kind of stops what they're doing to, patch with urgency. No business features moving forward. It's exhausting, and that's not sustainable, and we'll never compete, right? So what if updates weren't emergencies? That's the main thing. What if updates weren't emergencies where it's just normal? Like, we're just doing it all the time. It's not a big deal. Routine, safe. That's what continuous migration offers. It's just a steady rhythm. It's not chaos. When you find that small savings from an upgrade, it's not a one-time savings either. It's continuous. If I'm running software in production today and I do nothing with it for the next year, it's going to cost me the same at the end of the year. But if I'm detecting drift, if I'm patching, if I'm upgrading, again, every 6 months I get a Java version, Spring Boot version. If I'm doing that type of maintenance, I might get a little bit of a discount. Even if it's a single-digit percentage discount. At the end of the year, if I'm doing this continuous migration, continuous integration, At the end of the year, the software that I'm running in production today is going to cost me a little bit less. And depending on how many repositories you're taking in production, how many data centers you're deploying to across the world, that single digit percentage adds up. Here's the thing, I talked about the company. It's like, you did this, I want to do it across the org because we want to attract the best talent. It's hard to attract Netflix caliber engineers when you're running Java 6. It's hard. But now imagine two things. The team, the fresh out of school engineer, because I'm telling them, if you get a job offer from two companies, everything else is the same, ask them this. What version of Java are you running in production? What version of Spring Boot are you running in production? Because if all else is equal, you don't want to go work for the company that's running Java 8 and Spring Boot 2. Right? You don't want to go work there.
You could become the hero by getting into OpenRewrite.
You could, but I already showed you the story. I already showed you there's a path, right? And more power to you, but what I'm saying, go to the place where they're running Java 21 and Spring Boot 3. It hits, right? Developers talk, right? Tech stacks matter. Being modern isn't just about function. It is about culture too. Don't brag about running Java 8 in 2025. Attracting talent is step one. Keeping them is the real challenge, right? The happiest teams that I've worked with, they've got solid pipelines. They're running modern libraries and culture that supports change. Whether they're doing it fully at scale in the best bucket, that's a different thing. They are in a culture that opens the door to that type of opportunity. Keep your best engineers, giving them the latest tools and technologies, right? And this is one way to do it, right? And if you're in leadership, if you're in the C-suite, 5 years from now, do you want your company to still be running on Java 21? 5 years from now, we're going to have 10 new versions of Java. If you're a CEO that cares, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 Java versions from now, you want to be on the latest and greatest, right? If you're really caring about this company that you're running for the long run, you want this for your companies, and your customers want it. Your partners want it. And it's a compounding effect, right? When you fix the right things early and often, the benefits add up and they improve the entire org, right? It's organic. The growth is organic. I've not been in many opportunities where it was leadership that said, hey, we've got to do this. There was one team that said, hey, we are going to spend 2024, just last year, we're going to spend the entire year. We don't have any features to deliver. This entire line of business is just going to upgrade to the latest version of Java and Spring Boot. I was told this in January, that their 2024, for their bucket of repositories, they were just going to upgrade. That was their plan. That was their schedule. And I was in that company for a different team. I just got to introduce them along the way. And they said, hey, your ideas intrigue me, but we're a big company. We're a big enterprise. It'll never work for us. But we'll come to your workshop. Following month, February, did another workshop. They came in, showed them all the things. May 2024, that team's entire repository, their entire collection was already upgraded. They checked the boxes. They were on Java 21 and Spring Boot 3.3 at the time. They had reserved the whole year. That was their focus. That was their top-down mission, was don't do anything else. Get it to the latest and greatest. That is your job for 2024. And they were done in May. That's a fun story. That's a fun story, right? It adds up. The future belongs to teams who treat change as a constant, not a crisis. This future is only possible today because it's already working. It's already growing for teams just like yours. Like, we've already seen it. So you're either on the ride or not. We're looking at teams that are. Other frameworks have come and gone. OpenRewrite is definitely the winner. It's not just a tool, it's the tool. Like, I work at Broadcom. We built our tool for upgrading Spring on top of OpenRewrite. It is the winner. We even had a competing different, right? John worked on the Spring team and his friends were like, yeah, that sounds great. We're going to go this way. And I was like, I think maybe this way. But yeah, we realize we've learned from working with companies just like yours. We've taken the feedback, like this is the winner. This is the approach. And it takes a while. And I've worked with lots of smart engineers and like, oh, I don't ever work for our company. I've seen it, but I've also gotten that call back. Maybe it's 6 weeks, maybe it's 10 weeks later. They always call back. This is the right approach. It's the approach for continuous migrations. OpenRewrite was born in the Java ecosystem, and this is the other funny thing that I see. It's grown, right? OpenRewrite has grown beyond that. We even heard it in the keynote. Once you've seen how it works inside of the Java ecosystem, you're like, could this work for me? I had a quote where the customer said, is there an OpenRewrite recipe to help us upgrade from AWS to Azure? It sounds crazy, but the concept is real. If you can do this, if you understand what OpenRewrite is doing, and I even have a story kind of similar. I worked on Garmin Connect, as I showed in my intro, and we were using Google Maps. And Google called and said, hey, you're violating our terms. You owe us $20 million or whatever it was. And we're like, my manager, he's like, I'm gonna have to talk to legal. Thanks, bye. And my manager turned to Steve and he said, Steve, we've got to get off of Google Maps. Whatever you got to do, get us off of Google Maps. 2 weeks later, we were on Big Maps. Our community was furious. Right? We had 10 million users around the globe, and they were like, what did Microsoft came in and bought off? They bought Garmin Connect to make them switch to Bing Maps, and they were furious. They had no idea. Maybe I'm not supposed to be telling this, but we had the skill set in our small team, Steve had it, to switch us from one vendor to another. If you understand the value of having that ability, you're never locked into a vendor. If you understand, like, hey, we've got patterns, we've got a way to approach this. Vendor lock-in, if you're enlightened, isn't a thing. You've got a tool to do that, and you can migrate from one cloud to another, given the right tools. So, OpenRewrite, born in the Java ecosystem, but it's grown. This means you can use a single unified approach, right? When you've got this in place across the enterprise. So, manual runs are helpful. Every customer starts doing it manually. That's a great way to start. But once you see it works, don't stop there. This is the big thing. The next level is automating those refactors at scale. That's where the real things start to click. So I've been talking about OpenRewrite heavily for over 3 years. If this is your first time hearing about OpenRewrite, thank you for sticking around. If this is the first time you're hearing about OpenRewrite, congratulations. Like, new tool unlocked. Fantastic. If you're still unsure, ask around. This is real. My challenge to you is this. If it's worked for one app inside of your org, there's no reason it can't work for all your apps. The quote, somebody asked, like, hey, how do you decide? Actually, I think I have the quote coming up. Yeah, there's a path here. Here's the takeaway. You don't have to choose between innovation and maintenance. You can deliver new value and capture hidden value at the same time. That's the OpenRewrite advantage. You can be lucky and maybe ship the app that generates millions for your org. I've never been that lucky. But you could also improve hundreds or thousands of existing apps. Get those 1-digit performance improvements, memory savings. If you do that, you could also save millions, generating millions for your company. The option is yours. Which one? I mean, you got 2 paths. I'm just saying, sure, this is an option. That's kind of small. This is me editing, right? This is from the morning. He's like, how do you decide which repository? And what he said, I chose all of them. I was the one that started clapping in the back because that's the right way to do it. And I'm going to flip over here real quick. I draw this thing when I'm doing this, I'm like, go apply these recipes, go run it at scale. And this is what I got back. When I would go work with a team or a line of business or an org, whatever their portfolio was, I said, hey, go run all these recipes and see what happens. And here's what happened. It's not a bell curve, like that line for some is different than others. Sometimes they found that there's repositories, there's code that they're running in production that's not doing anything. It's been getting the care and feeding, it's running in production, but it's not doing anything. There's no calls coming into it, but they're still doing this maintenance and it's still on somebody's spreadsheet somewhere. It's not worth investment. There's an easy bucket, right? Whether it's 85% or whatever. What I've seen at the low end with OpenRewrite you can get to the latest and greatest. At the low end, 15% of your repositories are going to get to the latest and greatest one shot. No time at all. Easy button. And if you get them to the latest and greatest, the savings that we talked about, even if it's a 5% savings, even if it's a 1% savings, you get to keep that forever. When that goes to production, those savings are yours forever. At the high end, I had one customer that they applied OpenRewrite and Spring Boot Migrator, concepts the same. 70% of their apps, they took it to production in 24 hours. Not only did they upgrade it, they were microservices, they were small apps, it wasn't running the bank. 70% of the code that they were taking to production, 70% of the repositories that they were taking to production, they upgraded in 24 hours and they took it to production. They get that. They get that and they get to keep that. So this is the picture. There's going to be hard things. There's going to be code that doesn't upgrade. These are some of the things your common utils, your internal library that's built on Java 8 or Java 6, your wrapper around things that are preventing you from upgrading with the automation. There's lots of things. Don't look for one-to-ones. There's upgrades. Just, again, stories. But this is the key. Don't do it manually. Can't do it manually. You'll never win doing it manually. It's great to prove it, but once you prove it, you got to do it at scale. Oops, I got it. Maximize the amount of work not done. The way that Dova was talking about it, the amount of time saved, the hour saved, like that's not a good measure. That's hard. And is that reduction in force? Maximize the amount of work not done. If you're doing this at scale, it's not putting another thing on the developers. You get the automation, you get the real results. I'm saying, put in the automation. Make it just like running your unit tests. And it has to be automation at scale. Apply it to everybody on all 50,000, 65,000 repositories, whatever it is. Go across the board. Some of them are going to work, some of them aren't. But at least you'll know where to focus. That's all I've got. Thank you for your time. Questions? We've got like a whole 13 minutes for questions. Any questions? Any whatsoever. When you come to my house for dinner, if you leave hungry, that's your fault. We're here. I've got time for Q&A. If you have a question, you don't ask and you leave, that's your fault. Don't leave hungry. Yes.
You mentioned about the continuous migration.
Yes.
And how it's just running in the background. I guess at scale with like hundreds of teams, thousands of repositories, what if the tests and the integration tests fail? Whose job is it to fix that?
So this is a great question. Like, hey, how are you doing this in the background? So the vision that I have, this is two separate pipelines. This is what I take in practice. This is what I take to customers. Two separate pipelines. So I'm validating a pull request. That pull request gets put on a new branch. And I understand some orgs have automation around branches and they're validating pipelines and all that. But what I'm saying is that if I give you a pull request and that pull request tests fail, it's on a branch. We can come back to it later. That's okay. But it's not affecting production. This is the big thing. I always get a lot of pushback on, well, we can't do that. Same org. Oh, we're a big enterprise. We can't be on N-0. You can't expect us to be on N-0. The funny thing is I'm going to show this. Calendar.spring.io. Here, Spring Framework. We released 5.3, 6.0, 6.1, 6.2, 7.0. We released them all on the same day, is what I'm saying. What's the value on being on 6.2.7 versus 6.1.20? Where is the difference? There's not. You cannot tell me that there's value in being on 6.1.20 and -1 is better than being on 6.2.7 when they got released on the same day. And this has been my pushback. Because I've faced a lot of enterprise, Fortune 500 enterprise companies that say, we can't be on N-0. You can't ask that of us. My developers have too much on their plate already. You can't have. But you're committing to being on the latest patched version of N-1. There is zero difference here for Spring. Most of the time, there's zero difference. They're being released on the same day. So when that CD is getting patched on 6.1, it's also getting patched on 6.2. So I flip it back. And Not everybody, but I've gotten a lot of orgs to kind of like change their mind. But going back to the test, I want to do this at scale. So when there's a test that fails, that's okay. You don't have time to go deal with it now. That's okay. When you get time, then we can go look. Why did this test fail? What property needs to get fixed? What recipe needs to get written in order to do that? What I'm not trying to do is say like, hey, when there's a CD, you got to go handle it right away. Even in the keynote, there's this kind of pull request. You get to go at your own pace. Even in Netflix, that's their culture. There was kind of 3 patterns that I saw over the last 3 years. The first pattern in the good bucket, they're like, oh, I've ran the recipe and I've detected that there's a diff. So they would, some other team that didn't own your code, they would run a recipe against your code and they'd be like, oh, there's an upgrade here. I'm out and you go to production. Go fix it. Say, stop. Nope, you can't go to production. Go fix it. That was like the first wave. That was the first kind of maturity level. The second was the smart platform team said, oh, I've got this automation. I'm going to run these OpenRewrite recipes against your code, and I'm going to go ahead and commit those changes. Don't worry about it. I'll fix it. We got it from here. You're sending me Spring Boot 3.1. I'm going to go ahead and upgrade it to Spring Boot 3.4. I got it. That didn't always work so well, right? I broke it. I took it to production. I did the upgrade and I broke it. We heard that feedback, so we found a better way. The Netflix model was like, they can't touch it. In Netflix, each team knows exactly how much their app costs to run. It knows how much that app costs if it's down for a second. They know. So nobody gets to say like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and fix your code. They can't do that. The platform team says, here's a PR. Please merge it. And we found like that culture, that's the easiest to adopt. That's got the less feelings, right? There's less feelings behind it. If somebody, even if it's not, the name, like, oh, how come Nova's giving me a pull request? I don't know. If you've got a pipeline that validates that pull request, if your integration test, unit tests, smoke tests are passing, you can look at the diff. That's another value of the pull request is you can go get that small change. That's the other part here is make those pull requests small. And if you're doing it repeatably, continuously, they're always going to be small. Hopefully that answered your question, or at least gave you something to think about. Any other questions? This is my jam. Yes.
Kind of follow-up question about the previous one, but in our play, we try to build like more project teams, and hard for me to imagine that there will be like someone else external to keep running recipes on their repos, and as you said, they're gonna have a pull request injected, and they're gonna merge them. But how does this external team know what recipe to apply for the repos? How would you manage to mention the interaction between these two big teams or entities working together?
Yep. The question is like, how do you know which recipes to apply? Inside of orgs, there's typically patterns. There's buckets of like, hey, we've got this team over here that does COBOL. We got this team over here that does Spring, Spring Boot. And you'll find these patterns where they're using kind of the same dependencies. And a lot of times inside of orgs, it's like, hey, I copied your example and I made it myself. I made my own and I took it from there. It worked for you. I switched. Just like Dov was talking on copying over the SLF or JLogger. I copied it from that class over there. It worked and I throw it in, but now it's named wrong. But it happens. But when we find those patterns, the way that we're applying those CI/CD recipes, those pipelines, we get to choose. I want the Spring Boot recipes applied here. I want the SLF4J recipes. You get to choose which recipes are being applied to which repository. The key is to do it at scale. So when you find you've got another bucket that's using Angular or the .NET, you're going to find which recipes you want to apply at scale. Yes. On a repository by repository basis. Yeah. So I don't want to apply my Spring Boot recipes against my Python projects. So yeah, it's maintenance, right? Yep, you can do that. Now you're talking my language. So one of the patterns that I follow, it's an old deprecated project called Spring Cloud Pipelines from Marchin, where part of the automation, it goes in and it looks at the repository and says, hey, is there a Python requirements.txt? This is my Python one. Let me apply this pipeline. Let me apply these recipes here. And you can apply that kind of automation because this is the other key is I'm doing that continuously as well. When a new repository shows up, which happens a lot, when a new repository shows up, I automatically am applying not just CI/CD, but also the CI/CD pipelines to that new repository. And when it goes away, so do the pipelines. I love that level of automation, and you can do that. Doesn't typically happen right out the gate, though.
A little bit further to that question, like, so what if you want to make sure that, for instance, the static code analysis recipe, and you want to use it to bring it to a certain good standard coding practice, style, etc.
Yep.
Would you want to, do that on every merge request?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question is like, hey, static code analysis and all of like the consistency, code consistency, right? All of those types of recipes and those rules. At first, I was like, I don't really need that. But now as I work with more customers, now I'm realizing there's a lot of value in that. When I've got consistency across tens of thousands of repositories, when I've got that level of consistency, when I've got those little things that are consistent, it helps in two ways. It helps when I'm writing recipes, and it also helps when other people are looking at code, when they're going and copying. I get that consistency continuously. So even when I'm going and copying other examples that are in production, if everybody's writing the same ride, if everybody's got this automation, keeping all the code in the same spot, the Spring team does it as well. The Spring team has their own style conventions plugin that validates, hey, yeah, you're checking all the boxes, you're doing it the way that we do so that we can do it at scale. So we have a small team that's in charge of hundreds of repositories. That's how we handle it. So there's value in that. And yes, do it at scale, do it continuously, do it all the time. And there's going to be repositories that are harder. We're going to turn off SonarQube for now, right? There's going to be those, but that's okay. As long as we're doing it transparently and doing it across the board, we'll get it up to scale. We won't leave it behind. Yeah, you have to do it across the board. Doing it manually does not work. Don't do that. After you get past one and you realize OpenRewrite is working for me, don't do the next one manually. Choose them all.
You just said in a recurring Netflix article, typing that like every time they do a JavaScript, 10% better performance, 10% everything.
Yeah.
Or from a Spring Boot perspective, for say Spring Boot minor version, do you personally have like a similar like full stat like that? Like if you keep doing these minor upgrades, you're probably going to get X% faster each time.
So with the Spring Boot, it kind of goes in a different vein. What Spring does is it's adding a bunch of new features. So with Spring Boot 3.0, you have the ability to do the native image, right? So, and that was massive, right? That was a world-moving billion-dollar changes for companies that are able to take advantage of native images or scaling for edge for whatever they're doing. There's massive opportunity there. But with Spring, the way that we measure is you got opportunities to take advantage of new things. The way that most of the recipes work, the way that our recipes work is we're going to make it sure your code behaves the same. So when you upgrade from Spring Boot 2.6 to Spring Boot 3.4 with our recipes, you are upgrading, your code is going to behave the same. We're not going to automatically turn on virtual threads. We're not going to automatically turn on ahead of time compilation or class data sharing. We're not going to do that. It's going to behave the same. But now that you're on the latest and greatest, now you can turn on those knobs. You can have a recipe that says, hey, enable virtual threads. That's a recipe that's in the marketplace. So you can go and say, enable virtual threads. So you can do that. I don't have a out of the box because every Spring Boot app is different, right? We have the simple apps that are just doing MVC. We've got the Spring cloud streaming apps that are doing millions of transactions a second. So to say out of the box, here's the difference, it's hard. But we do find patterns inside of companies.
The statistics across a large amount of applications on how much time could be saved, because I think depending on the load time, the saving is different.
Yep. And each app kind of has its own metric that's valuable. For apps that are scaling up and down all the time, right? For apps that spike at the beginning of the stock market day and at the end of the day, right? They scale, those milliseconds matter, right? So the startup time is a big deal. So being able to be on the latest and greatest to get that improved startup time. Other things, all the garbage collection improvements that we've had in Java, the garbage collection, those little pauses, the garbage collection pauses, where in some companies, they're like, what happened? We had a 5 millisecond pause. right? Those types of improvements. Every app is going to be different on what you're going to kind of lean into, but the key is capturing the metric that matters.
Is there a blog post at least to have some different types of applications and then the potential time saving?
Because it's not just the type of application, it's also the environment that you're in. Now, here's the cool thing. He's asking like, hey, where's my cheat code? How can I get something that I can take to leadership and say, like, if we do this, we can save this.
Yeah.
I gave you repositories, like the one that I did my demo on, and I'll share my slides. So you'll have my slides. I'm going to put my slides will be on DaShaun.com, and there'll be a link to the repository. So you can go and run these demos. The cool thing is that demo that I showed, you can go and run that against a repository in your org, right? I have customers that have done it and they've seen 15% of their portfolio got upgraded. You can go do it in your org and you can show, and I'll give you the startup time, the memory footprint. The other key ones that I lean into are latency, right? Go run it, and everybody has to go, how do I measure it? How do I know that I'm going to get that? Do a canary deployment, right? Where I can say, hey, send 5% of traffic to the upgraded version and the rest of the traffic to your old version, and then compare which one the latency. Right.
Same probably also for the memory footprint. I think
Yeah.
Only if the application is running, you actually see what.
Yep. And that canary deployment is a way that we can do it in real time. And we can also use that for validation. If this one's showing more bugs per 1,000 transactions, then hey, maybe that wasn't the right idea. Let's go look further. But you've also limited the amount of risk by only sending 5% of the traffic to it. So if you're using something like Spring Cloud Gateway, you can do those types of routes. You can do a weighted routing to your new canary deployment. So my name is DaShaun Carter. I'm a Spring developer advocate, especially if you're using Spring. I'm happy to come in and help you. I'll give you all the cheat codes. I've got a plan to help you, like, hey, let's show the work. Let's show like, hey, here's the opportunity. And then let's get this platform running at scale. Let's do it at scale across all of our repositories, not just the one. That's where the real value happens. Thank you for your time.